Thank you very much, Pete. Great job you're doing too. Fantastic job. I've never walked into a room so silent before. This is very, oh, don't laugh, don't leave. You're not allowed to do this. You know what? Just have a good time. And if you want to applaud, you applaud. And if you want to do anything you want, you can do anything you want. If you don't like what I'm saying, you can leave the room. Because there goes your rank, there goes your future. But you just feel nice and loose, okay? Because we're all on the same team. And I was told that, sir, you will hear. You won't hear a murmur in the room. I said we have to loosen these guys up a little bit, so you just have a good time. But I want to thank Secretary Hegseth and General Kane, General Raising Kane, for a reason. They call him that. When I heard his name, I said, "You're the guy I'm looking for the Joint Chiefs of Staff and so many others in this room who together represent the greatest and most elite fighting force in the history of the world, the United States military. We're very proud of our military." Had rebuilt the military during my first term is one of the greatest achievements. We had the greatest economy in history, and I built the military. Those are the two things I say more than anything else. And I also kept us safe at the borders. We had very good borders. We didn't have people coming in from jails and prisons and everything like took place over the last 4 years. I'll never forget what happened to this country over the last 4 years with the incompetence. There could be no higher honour than to serve as your Commander-in-Chief. It is a great honour. I look at you, just incredible people. Central casting of my dad to each and every one of you. I thank you for your unwavering devotion to the armed forces and to the country that we've all sworn a sacred oath to defend. I'm thrilled to be here this morning to address the senior leadership of what is once again known around the world as the Department of War. I know Pete spoke about it. He gave a great speech. I said, "Great speech, I don't want him to get so good." And I hate that, I hate it. I almost fired him. I said, "You can. I don't want to go on after that." Now he gave a great speech, but he talked about Department of War. We were sitting there, I said, "Didn't it used to be called the Department of War?" And he goes, "Yes, sir. They changed it like in the early 50s, so we won the First World War. We won the Second World War. We went everything in between and everything before that. We only won and then we went away, woke. That was probably the first sign of wokeness. And we changed it to defence instead of war." And I said, "What do you think? How do you think we changed you back? Would that be a nice idea?" And Pete loved it immediately. Some people think he thought about it. They gave it a little thought, but in the end, we did it. And I have to be honest, it's so popular, I thought it would be met with fury on the left, but they're sort of giving up. I must be honest with you. They've had it. They've had it with Trump. They've been after me for so many years now. Here we are. We are come to the White House any time you'd like. No, they'd give it up bad. A lot of bad people. But all over that's been so popular. It's been a very popular. I really thought that we were going to have to sort of fight it through. There's been no fight. There's been no fight like what I call the Gulf of America, because to me it was always the Gulf of America I could never understand. We have 92% of the frontage, and for years, actually 350 years, they were there before us. It was called the Gulf of Mexico. I just had this idea. I'm looking at a map. I'm saying we have most of the frontage. Why is it Gulf of Mexico? Why isn't it the Gulf of America? And I made the change and it went smoothly. I mean, we had a couple of fake news outlets that refused to make the change, and then one of them, AP, took us to court and we won. And the judge, who is a somewhat liberal judge, said, "The name is the Gulf of America because AP refused to call it the Gulf of America." They wrote that they're not a good asset, by the way. They call it the Gulf of Mexico. I said, "No, the Gulf of America is the name." And the judge actually said that in fact you can't even go into the room because what you're doing is not appropriate. The name is the Gulf of America. Google Maps changed the name. Everybody did. But AP wouldn't. And then we won in court. How about that? Isn't that so cool? The Secretary Hegseth beautifully described. The name change reflects far more than the shift in branding. It's really a historic reassertion of our purpose and our identity and our pride. That's when we go with the word war. And, we want war because we want to have no wars. But you have to be there. And sometimes you have to do it. I say, I have settled so many wars since we're here. We had some that were not sellable, and they all got settled. So if this works out that we did yesterday with the Middle East, then that's more than a war. That's lots of wars. That's all come by. That's a lot of wars. Many of you were over there, many different capacities and many different countries. That's a big part of the earth. But if that works out, it would be 8. Plus, I could give myself 2 or 3 for that one. And then we just have the one to settle. We have to settle it up with President Putin and Zelensky to get them together and get it done. But the only way we can do that is through strength. I mean, if we were weak, they wouldn't even take my phone call. But we have extreme strength. We had the horror show in Afghanistan, which is really the reason I think that Putin won. And he saw that horror show by Biden and his team of incompetent people, and that showed, I think it gave him a path in. I was in there a lot longer. And I watched that and was so horrible. I think it was the most embarrassing day in the history of our country. And now we're back, and that's it. We're not going to have any of that crap happen, I can tell you. That was terrible. So terrible. Together, we're wakening the warrior spirit, and this is a spirit that won and built this nation. And from the cavalry that tamed the Great Plains, to the ferocious, unyielding power of Patton Bradley and the great General Douglas MacArthur, these are all great men in this effort. We're a team. And so my message to you is very simple. I am with you, I support you, and as President, I have your backs, 100%. You'll never see me even waver a little bit. So it is. And that includes our great police officers and firemen and all of these people that are doing so well together. Over the next few years, we're going to make our military stronger, tougher, faster, fiercer and more powerful than it has ever been before. I rebuilt our nuclear, as you probably know, but we'll upgrade that also and just hope we never have to use it. We have to hope we never have to use it. Because the power of that is so incredible. I see things, I don't think they'd show it to you. I really want them to show it to you. But when you see the result of what's left, you never want to use that. Never, never, ever. We were a little bit threatened by Russia recently, and I sent a submarine. Nuclear submarine? The most lethal weapon ever made. Number 1, you can't detect it. There's no way we're 25 years ahead of Russia and China in submarines. Russia is actually second in submarines. China is third. But they're coming up their way to lower a nuclear too. But in 5 years they'll be equal. They're coming up.